The interstellar spaceship Avalon may be seen visiting through space, headed to a colonized global known as Homestead 2. All of its quarters are empty. The vessel is on autopilot. The 258 crew members in addition to the 5,000 passengers are in hibernation. Suddenly, the Deliver passes through an asteroid belt that's weakening its shields. Power is diverted to the primary shield, however the Deliver is on a collision path with a giant asteroid. Suddenly, the asteroid collides with the Deliver, inflicting diverse malfunctions. The Deliver starts evolved self-reparations. However, one of the hibernation pods activates. The passenger woke is Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer. His pod opens and an automatic machine helps together along with his awakening, telling him that he has spent 120 years in suspended animation and that the Deliver is simplest 4 months far from Homestead 2. He's advised that he may be capable of spend that time taking part in the steeply priced elements of the Deliver. Jim gets commands approximately his ID band, his cabin and the number 1 sports he is to participate of. Previous to the appearance on the planet, excited and frightened to fulfill the humans on the Deliver, he receives ready, leaves his cabin and walks into an automatic elegance intended for a whole getting-to-know group. Jim seems a touch anxious, because the hologram explains the scenario on Earth, calling it overpopulated, overpriced and overrated. It tells him to keep his inquiries to the cease of the lesson. However, Jim continues asking why he is the simplest one there. He realizes that the hologram can't answer him and is going to look for different people. He receives to the primary concourse of the Deliver. No one is there either. However, an automatic informational table gives the help. Jim asks to speak to an actual man or woman and it sends him off to speak to a steward. However, whilst he reveals that no person is there too, he asks to communicate to the captain. When he receives to the bridge, despite the fact that he does not have get right of entry to move in, he can see that none of the primary team is sleeping either. Jim sooner or later is going to the observatory, wherein he reveals out that the Deliver is without a doubt 90 years far from Homestead 2. He realizes that he awakened too soon, so he rushes again to the concourse and sends a message again to Earth asking what he need to do, because he does not understand the way to get again into hibernation. The communications machine informs him that the overpriced name to Earth could take approximately 55 years to get a solution again. Jim is devastated. He walks round and reveals the ship's bar, wherein he sees any other man or woman. As he is speaking to the bartender, something appears bizarre approximately him. When he is going to get him a drink, Jim realizes that he is an android. It's referred to as Arthur. Jim desires to discover extra statistics from him. However, he cannot even give an explanation to the android how it is viable for him to be there ahead of time. Jim wakes up in his cabin tomorrow and is going to the cantina, wherein he speedily realizes that maximum of the matters at the menu are reserved for gold magnificence passengers only. He receives his undeniable espresso and attempts to figure out the way to restoration his hibernation chamber. After he receives all of the gear, he manages to get it running and lies down inner of the pod, but not anything happens. Next, he makes a decision to apply the gear he found to get into the team's hibernation chambers. That is not paintings either. Small malfunctions occur across the Deliver. Jim maintains returning to the bar to drink. However, in the main to speak to Arthur, the android offers him a few advice that convinces him to break into one of the gold magnificence rooms and try and have a laugh at the Deliver. Jim attempts all of the restaurants, the games, the leisure system, but as time passes he turns into even greater miserable to be there alone. One day, he receives inebriated and wanders around the hibernation pods. While he stumbles into an airlock with spacesuits designed for spacewalks, Jim receives right into a shape and is going to the airlock, pushes a lever after which the button to release the airlock door. Once outdoor the Deliver, he's mesmerized by way of means of the view. He's the handiest aware person experiencing that second in time. Jim releases the magnets on his boots and floats in space. Feeling devastated, he comes returned internal, takes to the air the in shape, however is going returned to the airlock without it on. He pulls the lever, prepared to cease it all. However, modifications his thoughts within inside the remaining second. runs returned internal and slips on a bottle. Jim stands up and is straight away interested in a female in one of the pods, named Aurora. He searches for her documents inside the directory and listens to her passenger interview, becoming enamored with her. Later his visible sitting subsequent to her pod, still being attentive to her interviews. Back inside the bar, he is studying a number of her paintings and is speaking to Arthur approximately her writing. He turns into obsessed on the irony of his situation, going to some other planet for a better life, waking up early and now no longer getting there, and locating his ideal female, handiest for her to be out of reach. Jim maintains considering her and begins evolve getting the concept to wake her up too. He talks it over with the android, however he would not apprehend the conundrum. If he wakes her up for his personal benefit, he'd be stranding her there with him, to die on the deliver. Jim comes to a decision towards it first, however as time is going by way of means of he cannot allow it go, until one day, he modifications his thoughts. He is going to her pod and manages to activate it, as she's waking up and going via the same technique as he did. He hides and is going return to his room. A little bit later he is going to the primary concourse, hoping to discover her, and there she is, simply as pressured as he became 12 months ago. Jim tells her they're the handiest ones awake and takes her to the observatory. Then he tells her that he cannot get to neither the crew, nor the primary instructions of the deliver. Aurora freaks out and desires to get returned into her pod. When they get to it, Jim explains that there isn't any unique system at the deliver that can assist them get returned into hibernation, effectively telling her that they may be stranded. They move returned on the concourse and he tells her that she have to rest, because she simply came out of hibernation. She feels sorry for him, having to spend extra than 12 months on my own at the deliver. Jim is going return to the bar, feeling regretful approximately what he did. He asks Arthur now no longer to inform her or that he become the only that woke her up. The subsequent day, Aurora wakes up. She is going return to the concourse and asks the computerized information table approximately the hibernation pods. Jim joins her there and that they visit get breakfast. As they leave, the information table has a few sort of malfunction. In the cantina, Aurora realizes that Jim has been consuming the identical breakfast for extra than 12 months and receives him one of the gold-class menus. They speak approximately the opportunity to repair the pods. However, not like Jim, Aurora is not ready to provide up. She searches through the infirmary, then is going through studies documents, sooner or later ending up on the crew's hibernation quarters trying to interrupt the doorways open. Jim notices extra malfunctions in the course of the deliver. Sometime later, Aurora laments approximately her lifestyles at the Avalon. She writes, jogs across the deliver and swims inside the pool, turning into increasingly aware of her situation. She is going to the cantina to interview Jim, questioning that his tale is probably interesting. She asks why he immigrated to the colony. Jim solutions with slogans from the company first, however then similarly explains that he hopes that on the brand new global he may be somebody, he ought to construct the lifestyles. Later, they grow to be inside the observatory and Aurora in the end stalks her purpose to be there. Unlike the opposite passengers at the deliver, she has a spherical ride ticket. Her concept become to visit Homestead too, stay there for 12 months and are available lower back to Earth, to become the primary journalist that has ever completed that, writing the finest tale that ever become. Aurora slowly offers up on locating a manner to restoration their present-day dilemma and Jim figures out a manner to cheer her up. He takes her dancing, to the cinema, and to the basketball court. Lastly, he's taking her to the bar to satisfy Arthur. She relaxes for a bit, till she remembers their situation. Jim is left by myself with the android, feeling lousy approximately what he's completed to her. The subsequent second he is visible tinkering with something and inside the different Aurora walks into the observatory to discover a miniature of the Chrysler building he made for her. Sometime later, they cross on a date at the bar. They have dinner and proportion tales approximately their lives. She tells him that her father died whilst she became a teenager. After the dinner, Jim takes Aurora to the airlock and that they get onto the spacesuits. They exit for a spacewalk collectively. Jim ultimately has a person to proportion that magnificent traveling with. Jim switches off the magnets on their boots and that they glide collectively in space. They come lower back in air and right now kiss, retreat to his cabin and sleep collectively. Soon after, they begin residing like a couple. Aurora movements into his cabin and writes approximately her lifestyles at the deliver. They jog collectively, devour collectively, sleep collectively. Jim explores the deliver in addition and reveals the hydroponics bay. He brings Aurora flowers. One day the deliver passes through a crimson massive and they visit the observatory to peer it. It's Aurora's birthday. So later that night they rejoice in one of the many restaurants at the deliver, after which the bar. Jim is going to the washroom and prepares the ring he made for Aurora. Whilst she remains in the bar speaking to Arthur, the android tells Aurora that Jim woke her up intentionally, unaware that he becomes still to hold that the secret. Suddenly, Jim comes returned and he confronts him in absolute disbelief. She runs away livid and panicked. Jim comes returned to his cabin to locate all her matters gone. He runs into her inside the cantina the following day. However, the second he speaks, she runs away. Aurora is desperate. One night time she is going over to Jim's cabin, punching and kicking him, looking to kill him, talking to her over the comm due to the fact she keeps heading off him. Jim attempts to express regret and explain his movements to her. He tells her he fell in love together along with her. However, Aurora would not care. She cannot forgive him for taking her life. One night time, as Jim is in his cabin, another malfunction happens. The deliver faces a crucial mistake and the primary command shuts down. Later, he walks into the elevator and it malfunctions. Aurora walks into the primary concourse and sees that Jim has planted a tree there. Then, she is going to the cantina, in which the food dispensary is likewise malfunctioning. Suddenly, each of them pay attention to the voice of the deck leader over the comms, asking who planted the tree. They each run into the concourse and spot Gus Mancuso's status in the front of Jim's tree. They introduce themselves and inform the leader approximately the situation. He would not apprehend how 3 pods may want to fail. Mancuso takes them to the bridge and he discovers that there may be something incorrect with the deliver. However, the data at the structures has to be checked manually. When they depart the bridge, a robotic almost falls on their heads and the two of them inform Mancuso that malfunctions had been happening everywhere and the deliver greater frequently. He says that should not happen, as he shows them the way to accumulate the data. Mancuso examines the pods. While Jim joins him there, he's discovered what came about with Aurora's pod. The deck leader reveals what Jim did to be terrible. Later, he is on the bridge checking the collected data. While Aurora joins him, they speak approximately what came about together along with her pod. However, he tells her that he cannot do anything approximately. Jim walks in with the 16th damaged robot. Mancuso feels the hibernation sickness, so he is going to rest. However, as he walks out, he coughs out blood. That night, Aurora can't sleep, so she is going for a swim. Suddenly there may be gravity loss at some stage in the deliver and he or she begins to fall drowning because the water from the pool actions with her. The gravity pressure resets and he or she slightly makes it out alive. They each run into every different going to discover Mancuso. The 3 of them are returned on the bridge, slowly coming across what has been going on with the deliver. Mancuso figures out that something happened 2 years ago, removing a primed system. They want to discover and connect what has prompted the failure. Due to the fact the whole deliver is trying to chew up the slack, if they do not repair it, the whole vessel will be stranded. They discover the problem. However, Mancuso faints, so Jim and Aurora take him to the infirmary. He's loss of life and there aren't any remedies that can prevent it or lengthen the time he has left. Sometime later, the 3 of them meet in the observatory and Mancuso offers Jim his ID bracelet, tells them to repair the deliver and right away perishes. Suddenly, the lighting fixtures alternate to an alarming pink and the deliver begins to fall shaking. Jim tells Aurora that he desires her assist and they run closer to engineering. However, there may be every other failure inside the gravity pressure, and immediately every other one which afflicts Arthur as well. Jim deactivates him. They subsequently arrive in engineering and start seeking out the problem. Discover it inside the strength plant and as they open the hatch, Aurora receives sucked in. The asteroid has prompted a breach inside the hull in that area. Jim receives sucked in too. However, he holds onto the hatch, because it continues last on him. Eventually he receives sucked in too. However, they speedy control to seal the breach. Instantly after solving that problem, Jim realizes that there may be multiple breaches inside the hull. The of them comply with the trajectory of the meteor and locate that it has hit the reactor managed computer. Jim thinks he can locate alternative elements for it. They locate the component and extract it. However, the method of venting the reactor nevertheless fails. They do it manually. However, it fails again. Jim figures out that he desires to open the vent door from out of doors of the deliver, so they can cool the reactor down. Both of them visit the airlock, and as he's on the point of pass out, he offers Aurora Mancuso's bracelet. Due to the fact he may not come returned, she enables him with the healthy, and as he walks into the airlock she tells him to return due to the fact she cannot stay at the deliver without him. Aurora is going return to the reactor, in which the temperature has hit essential heights. A bolt from the reactor propels into her arm. As Jim is getting toward the vent from the out of doors and sees the door, the temperature rises inside the reactor room. Whilst he is attempting to pass the vent door to open it, he quickly realizes that he's going to need to manually preserve the door open so the reactor can vent, and he tells Aurora she does not just like the plan. However, he is going ahead with it and tells her to vent the reactor. She does not need him to die and that they argue. However, he tells her that they've to shop the different humans and he vents the reactor. The method is successful. However, the fumes from the reactor push Jim away and destroy his tether. The stress in his healthy is losing too. He tells Aurora what befell, and he moves as rapid as she will to get to any other healthy and produce him in. He apologizes to her again. She places on a healthy and flies out to get him. However, her tether is simply too short. She's returned. However, abruptly grabs onto his tether and manages to tug him in. Aurora drags Jim into the infirmary, only to discover that he is already dead. She makes use of Mancuso's bracelet to override the scientific protocols and to resuscitate him. The scientific pod does the paintings automatically and revives Jim. Aurora forgives him. Later, Aurora fixes Arthur and that they supply Mancuso a right area burial. Jim takes her to the infirmary and tells her that he's located a manner to apply the clinical pod as a hibernation one. He tells her to get within the pod and write out the relaxation of the adventure in there. But, as is later revealed, she declines and comes to a decision to live with him. Wide conscious at the deliver, Jim ultimately proposes to her and that they live out their lives at the deliver. 88 years later, the Avalon arrives on Homestead 2. The team wakes up and reveals the deliver in a very surprising state. Aurora leaves them a message, retelling the tale of the existence her and Jim had at the deliver whilst the relaxation had been sleeping.